Hello. What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back. It's your boy Blue, and you got the homie here, XP.72, episode 31, I believe, of the Blu-XPerience podcast, all about aviation and flight simulation, trying to inspire the next generation. And hopefully you guys have been enjoying the ride so long. I do have a big announcement to say right up front before we even get into our amazing guest, and that is Blu-XPerience is finally starting up a brand new standalone channel. Me and XP are joining forces and creating a brand new channel just for this show. You guys have been giving us such good feedback, and we've been loving it, and we thought it deserved to have its own platform. It's already on Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, but I think it'd be great to have its own channel and just kind of take advantage of that and just show, just kind of be we're trying to grow it to be a bigger thing in the flight sim and aviation community. So I think it's gonna be amazing. So definitely go and check it out. We're gonna be dropping the links in the chat and in the description to the brand new channel, Blu-XPerience Media. And next week, episode 32, we're bringing in an amazing guest, and they are going to be sponsoring 10 giveaways. Yes, 10 giveaways. That is going to be Orbx. We all know we love Orbx scenery, can't get enough, so definitely come back, and you got to make sure you're following and you're subscribed to that channel, because next live stream, next podcast is going to be streamed exclusively on the new Blu-XPerience Media channel. So again, in the description, we're going to have that link for you. Nightbot's going to have that link for you. We're going to get it set up, but without further ado, XP.72, what's up with you, man?
Hey. What's going on, guys? Long day for me today, but the most exciting thing right now is what Blue just talked about. Blu-XPerience is going to be on its own channel. Me and Blue has been working and talking about it for a minute. We're no longer stepping over each other, no longer having this broadcast on 4 different platforms at the same time. We're going to have one place, one source for all of this, and we're going to start it with a bang. As you said, Orbx is jumping on and sponsoring the first episode with 10 giveaways. 10 exactly. As a matter of fact, in chat right now, if you could go to !BXM, that will give you the link for the Blu-XPerience Media channel. Right now, honestly, there's only 1 subscriber on the Blu-XPerience Media channel.
Actually, there's already 10. Just in the last few seconds.
It's going up. There you go. That's what I want. Get it up and going. Right now on it real quick before we introduce our next guest, because we're anticipating talking to this gentleman here. But just to let you know, there's already videos uploaded from our previous episodes. We have from episode 1 up to 5 already.
Yes.
So you guys can go back to listen to the oldies but goodies. The first one with V1 simulation is on there. Microsoft and Xbox release is on there. We have a Flight Sim Expo 2021 on there, and we're just going to be loading all the archives on Blu-XPerience Media. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button over there as soon as you land on our page, and we'll talk about it some more. But anyway, Blue, time for you to not bore the audience anymore with our stuff. Let's bring this gentleman on.
Yes, so I think that me and XP will agree that when it comes to flight simulation, when it comes to aviation, when it comes to this hobby, this passion, this thing that we love that we call airplanes, is that there's so many amazing jobs out there, and it's not just about being a pilot. There's so much more you can do. Maybe you can't be a pilot for some reason. Maybe you physically can't do it. Maybe something is holding you back, right? Well, there's a lot of other options out there that you can do. Air traffic controller, all kind of things. And so I like promoting those things. I know XP does too. And today we have a very unique position in the aviation industry, and it actually sounds really interesting and really attainable. I'm actually legit myself already, before we even started, interested in possibly looking deeper into getting into this career. That is an airline flight dispatcher, and we got the homie. You may recognize his name from chats in the past. That is Wrong Side Simulation. Say what's up to the people.
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here.
Welcome aboard, man. Listen, thank you so much, by the way. Let me just say thank you before I say anything else for your perseverance, because you reach out to us and go, hey, man, I got some stuff to contribute to this flight sim community. And it's not just about flying, it's other things that I've done. You are a real world airline employee in a big way. And you reached out to us. You said, hey, bring me on the show. I'll let the audience know more about a lot of other things you could do in the airline industry, and that's why you're on the show. And I thank you so much for coming on, man. Absolutely appreciate it. How you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm good. I'm not sure if my heart's pounding because I'm drinking 32 ounces of black coffee, or because I'm sitting in front of a computer talking to two legends in the flight sim world. But man, I'm so happy to be here and very thankful for this opportunity to share my story and what I do and my fellow coworkers do. Because I think a lot of people, especially in the flight sim community, everybody knows dispatch and they know sim brief as probably about the most of that. But it's incredible what we do and the impact that we have. So I just wanted to share that. And for like you were saying, if there's anybody who can't fly, this is an incredible next best.
So I don't even know where to start, bro. We talked a little bit before the show. Let's start off with where you came from, right? So your wrong side simulations. You just started a new YouTube channel yourself. So definitely go check him out. That link is already in the description of the YouTube show. But so a brief, what got you into aviation? What got you into flight simulation? And what got you into eventually streaming?
Man, I was always pretty interested in airplanes growing up, like most of us. I remember my grandpa taking me to the airport and watching old Delta MD-88s take off, and thought that was
boy.
really cool. And then I went to my first air show, and I watched the Blue Angels and was just captivated. But I always thought to myself, like, man, there's no way I'll be smart enough to work in aviation. Like, these guys are like, the cream of the crop. And so go through high school. I graduated high school, and I didn't know what I was wanting to do. But I was walking through Target one day, and on the shelf saw Microsoft Flight Simulator 10.
Oh boy.
And so I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I pick it up and read it, and it talks about when you land, the airport comes alive around you, and it's like, man, I want to check this out. So started getting into that, and really that's probably the biggest influence of where I started going in aviation was the flight sim. And from there, got right out of high school, so I started working at Hibbett Sporting Goods. Played sports growing up. It's like, I'll go sell gloves and stuff. Had a coworker of mine who he did that, but he also worked for Continental. And he's like, oh man, if you like airplanes, you need to come do what I do. And so he worked the ramp for Continental. Took me on a shift. This is before SITA badge days. And went out there and marshaled an airplane. And I was like, dude, this is way better than selling tennis shoes and gloves. So yeah, I went and applied, got a job with Delta, and doing all the ground operations with them. And I was doing that for about 5 years. Did a little short spurt of time in the Air Force, which also kind of feeds into all of this. And I was supposed to fly. I got out of the military on a medical disability, so the VA was going to pay for my aviation degree. I was going to go to Louisiana Tech. If y'all can't tell, I've got an accent. I'm originally from Louisiana.
I was just gonna ask you, where did that accent come from, bro? I love it. I love it though.
Yeah. I am from Louisiana. If any of y'all have seen Duck Dynasty, the town they're from, Monroe, Louisiana, is where I'm from.
Wow.
So in fact, got to meet those guys through working at Delta, handling a lot of their flights and stuff. But but yeah, so anyways, got out of the Air Force, and they were going to send me to Louisiana Tech and pay for my aviation degree, pay for everything. Like if I needed a flight bag, needed a headset, whatever, they pay for it all. Kind of seemed too good to be true. Turned out it was. We were getting ready to pull the trigger on it, and that's when the FAA changed the ATP up to 1,500 hours. And I was going to graduate college with 350 flight hours. And so the VA was like, yo, we want you in the right seat of an airliner right after college. That's not going to happen. We're not doing it.
Oh, my God. Wow.
And so next best was flight dispatch. I didn't really know a whole lot of what they did. I dealt with dispatchers working ground ops with Delta. Anytime we had like a payload restriction and we had to kick passengers, I'd call the dispatch, but yo, can we like try to make this better so we can get these passengers on a plane? So I had a little bit of interaction with them, but still didn't really know what they did. And I looked into it. I was like, this is a pretty cool deal. So I asked the VA, it's like, hey, can we switch this whole thing from pilot to go get my dispatch license? And so sure enough, the VA paid for the dispatch license, and which is far cheaper than any pilot's license. But yeah, so I went to dispatch school, got my dispatch license, and then went over to Trans-States Airlines and got a little bit of experience there, and now I'm at a major Part 121 U.S. carrier dispatching, and next week I will be transitioning from flight dispatcher to flight dispatch manager, and have no idea what to really expect on that one. We'll kind of see when we get there, but nonetheless, if it wasn't for flight sim, I wouldn't be where I'm at now.
So, question.
Wow.
I'm gonna jump right in. How
Go
old are
ahead.
you?
How old am I?
Yes.
I am 31, and
Okay.
I jumped into the ramp game when I was 19. So
Jeez,
I've been,
that's-
I think I was there for 5 years, and I've been dispatching now for about 7.
Wow.
So basically, you've got aviation fumes in your system from a teenager. That's it. You're hooked
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And that was the
Wow.
thing, like doing the ground operation stuff for me, it wasn't anything about a paycheck, because if anybody knows anything about being a ramper, especially for a contracted company, because I was with DGS, which I don't believe is in business anymore. But
That's what I work
I
for,
think
technically.
it's Unify, right?
Yep.
That's what they yeah. So yeah, it was not about the paycheck. For me, it was all about having the opportunity to be around the pilots and ask questions and learn and kind of get my foot in the door. And man, it's like there will be so many good people along the way. If you be a good person, good people will help you along the way. And through that, met a good buddy of mine. He is now a FedEx captain, but at the time he was a Pinnacle captain. He was also from Louisiana. I'm a big LSU fan. I was wearing an LSU ball cap. He came off the plane and saw my ball cap, and he was like, "Oh, go Tigers!" So we start chatting, and I was on the headset getting ready to push him out, and told him I was getting ready to ship out for the Air Force, and I wanted to fly. And he's like, "Oh man, well here, take my number, and shoot me a text, and I'll text you when I get to Atlanta." Okay, that's kind of weird, but all right. So I text him, and when he landed in Atlanta, he texted me back. He's like, "Hey man, I wanna mentor you. I want to help get you into the industry any way that I can."
Wow.
And man, he's contributed a lot to where I'm at. He got me some sim time on the CRJ 200. He is a board member at Flight Safety International in Vero Beach, Florida. So he would fly in, I go pick him up, and he would give me some free discovery flights while he does his board member things over there. And he's just an awesome dude. He loves to try to bring the younger generation up to into aviation, that kind of thing. So he loves a mentor, and he always told me, he said, I'll do anything for you as long as you pay it back to somebody else down the road.
Wow.
And it's part of what I'm trying to do right now.
No, that's actually awesome, man. Awesome. Let me ask you a question. Let me step back a second, because you said you had to get your license or whatever to become an ops person.
Mhm.
What are we talking about as far as education? Because as I said, there's lots of people here who want to be pilots, just like me, you, Blue, and every one of us. But because of different circumstances, whether it's medical, health, financial, time, family, location, you can't. But if you decide to still be in the airline, because something that you said earlier off stream, and I wanted to talk about it later on, is the perks of being an ops agent blew me away, which is pretty cool. But what does it take to become an ops agent? What are we looking at? What do you need to do? Where do you need to be? What would you
as
say
far
it
as
is?
ops agent, so there's a difference between like ops agent and flight dispatcher.
Flight
Um,
dispatcher. There you go.
yeah.
That's it. Sorry.
But both really nothing, to be honest. I mean, as I
Like
went
high
into
school degree? I mean, like, what do
yeah,
we?
yeah.
What's the
Minimal is going to
requirement?
be high school degree or maybe a GED.
Okay.
But other than that, I mean, that's really it. Obviously, as a ramper or like ops agent, very minimal. I started that when I was 19, right out of high school. But for dispatch, you have to be 23. That's really hard to do. Then on top of that, that's it. Just be 23. Come up with $4,500. That's what it costs roughly to get your dispatch license.
That's
If you're not
it?
having to pay for, that's it.
It is.
$4,500.
Wow.
Yep. And it's a 5-week school, 5 to 6 week school, depending on where you go. And that's it. And man, I'm sitting at a desk next to people who have Embry-Riddle degrees, and I don't have a degree at all.
Wow.
So It's
Wow.
that's another reason why it's so great, because college isn't for everybody.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, man. I agree with
Yeah,
100%
that.
agree. Yep.
I was one of those. I was struggling just to get my basics out of the way to try to go to tech to fly, much less get a degree. And man, I'm sitting next to people that incredibly smart and paid a lot of money for their degrees, and we're both, you know, sitting in the same place. That's the beauty of it, is just go to dispatch school, knock out your 5-6 weeks. Now it's hard. It's a pretty tough course. The first 2 weeks, at least at my school where I went to, schools are structured differently. I currently have a friend of mine, Jay. He's probably watching this right now. Him and I met through my flight sim channel. He used to be a storm chaser back in the day. He used to fuel airplanes at Chicago O'Hare back in the day, and now he's sitting. He's got 6 kids. He'd been at the same job for about 10 years and was kind of meh on the job. And so he got to know me through my flight sim channel, and he's like, "Oh, there's a job where you can deal with weather and airplanes. Sign me up." So now he is. I think Monday he takes his written and oral practical with the FAA to get his dispatch license, and once he's got that, he's off on the. He's got a job with Republic Airways already lined up. In fact, he's already technically employed. But really cool that like I was able to touch somebody in that way. But now he goes from a job from 10 years, it's kind of meh. Now he's starting a whole new career, something that he really, really loves.
I have a
Wow.
question real quick, because that what you just
Mhm.
said is a massive statement in my opinion.
Mhm.
How long have you been streaming?
Maybe a year,
A year. So
something
you've
like
only
that.
been streaming in a year, and you were able to connect with a viewer and inspire that person to legit make a decision that changes their whole life from here on out. That is amazing.
Yep.
Salute to you. And I think that's why it's so important. Anybody out there who does stream or make videos, that you have to remember, doesn't matter if you have 500, 5,000 people watching you at once, or if you have 5 or 10, like, your presence matters and you matter, and what you say on those streams, what you say, that the content you put out really does matter. Because just like this, you just shared your story. Like, yeah, I do flight dispatching. It's really cool. And this guy was like, huh, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know that was a possibility, right? And that's kind of the heart of today's show, and it's going to be throughout, is that, like, hey, like, this is something that's an opportunity, is an option, and we're talking about some of the ways that you can do that. So my other following question is, you kind of answered my question on how much, how long does it take? What was it? I saw a question in the chat. So are you able to go straight into getting, like, it's a school for a license, or do you have to go through like a university?
There are universities that offer it. I think Middle Tennessee is a pretty big one. But no, there's individual schools just for flight dispatch. I went to IFOD in Dallas, which is Institute of Flight Operations and Dispatch. There's Jefferson, there's Sheffield. I think Sheffield's down in South Florida. They're all structured a little bit differently. They kind of do their own way of things, but at the end of the day, everybody's taking the same test, and it's all the same. All the same content, I guess you'd say. But yeah, I mean, it's it's very easy to do as far as minimal requirements. Just be 23. In fact, you can actually get your license before 23. You just can't dispatch at a Part 121, which is scheduled air carrier operations, until you're 23. So yeah, just $4,500. Go spend 5-6 weeks with your nose in the book, and then you're pretty much set for the rest of your life, as long as you can present yourself in a good way and go get a pretty decent job. And it's a hell of a job. It's a lot of fun. We see new things every single day. Almost every day is different. Plus incredible perks and that kind of stuff. But if anybody can't fly, look into dispatch, because it pays pretty well. You get to deal with airplanes, and the biggest part of it is we get to ride in the cockpit on
Oh boy.
all U.S. carriers. And that's
That's
what that was the biggest thing for me, was like, man, I get to ride in the cockpit. Let's go.
that's what I want to ask you about next, because we talked about kind of like, hey, this exists. This is something that you should do if you can't fly, or whatever. But why?
Mhm.
If people are not sold yet by now, like, what is it? perks wise that what do you love so much about dispatching? What do you think people would love about it? Sell me.
So it's like, so first of all, when getting your dispatch license, at least at my school, the first 2 weeks was learning everything that the pilots know that they've learned in their 1,500 hours to obtain their ATP. And we take a dispatch version of their ATP. It's pretty much the same. So the first 2 weeks are really tough because you're having to learn radials and like all the instrument stuff they know. We're learning regulatory things like FA regs, weather theory, weight and balance, performance, all this stuff. So the first 2 weeks are pretty tough. Like you do have to have your nose slammed to the book for about the first 2 weeks. After that, it's all flight planning. If anybody's a flight dispatcher, you've done some sort of flight planning, whether you use SimBrief or PFPX, whatever. Except our flight planning is a little bit more in depth, and we're bound by FAA regulations and company policy and stuff like that. But other than that, we're not flying the airplane, but we are 50% responsible for that flight with the pilot in command of each flight. So if I'm dispatching 20, 35 flights in a shift, I am 50% responsible for the legalities and the safety of that flight with the pilot in command of each one of those flights.
Wow.
So do you have
So
more
you-
responsibility than the first
Wow.
officer?
In the eyes of the FAA in the overall process, yeah,
Wow.
pretty much.
Oh my.
Like in our
Wow.
world, we
That's a huge responsibility.
a little bit, you got an airplane with like 234 souls on board, and like every now and then there'll be something that'll kind of like if you get comfortable, you might have a little situation that kind of scares you a little bit, like oh, and you kind of remember what it is that you do, and we're out there because we flight plan, and that's a big part of our job. But the biggest part of it is that once the flight's en route, we're talking to the crew, letting them know about turbulence and thunderstorms and icing, anything that could affect the safety of flight. We're letting them know. So we're kind of the eyes in the sky, which is probably the biggest reason why we exist. Because the FAA loves the idea of having an eye in the sky and letting crews know what's going on, all that kind of stuff. So we're very much involved with planes trying to come into land, and there's a thunderstorm on the field and they can't get in. They send us the fuel on board and the altitude and what they're going to be doing, and we'll run all that and determine how long they can hold, when they're going to divert, and where they're going to divert to, stuff like that. So we're basically, it's like we're the coach and the captain is the quarterback.
You tell them what to do and they execute it the best way they can, or call an audible if they need to, or whatever.
Right.
Wow.
And so any kind of change, so I send my flight plan and I have this strategy, and the captain wants to make a change. He has to address me with that change, and vice versa. It's 50-50 joint responsibility. So if there's something different that I want to do, I need to talk to him first or her and talk it out. Make sure that's something that we want to do. So it's never just like a free for all. I'm gonna do what I want to do kind of thing. We have to talk to each other and figure out like, all right, is this the change we want to make, or we're gonna go with the original plan or whatever. And that can be whether it's like you don't like the route or doesn't like the fuel that I planned or doesn't like the altitude that I planned. And a lot of times too, especially being a simmer, and that's kind of the other side of it all, is being a flight simmer, you kind of get a better idea of what these guys are doing in the cockpit, and how things affect them when they're busy, like when do you want to talk to them, that kind of stuff. So usually, like if I have something going on, I'm trying to get, if I need to run them burns and let them know what their fuel burns look like, so we just had some sort of a change in whatever the flight's doing. I want to let them know before they're descending, because when they're descending, then they're starting to get busy. They're talking ATC more, and they're getting busier with the cockpit environment as a whole. So you kind of, as a flight simmer, you kind of know what that's like in a way, especially if you fly on bat sim. It's like bat sim times 10 in real life.
Right.
But yeah, so there's, I don't know, it all kind of ties into each other, and it flight simming also just gives you a lot more insight on different little things. Like, for example, like in my company, we do Airbus, and the Phoenix for me was a godsend. So I already knew a lot about the airplane, but Phoenix was so good at replicating certain processes, like all right, we're going to load the airplane, and you get your preliminary load sheet, right? And that's kind of the same thing as the OFP that the captain would have, and they're going to input their information based off of planned. But then when it's done boarding, you get your actual, and those numbers might change. And that's very much like that's so realistic. It's very often that the flight was planned full, and then for whatever reason, we have several no-shows, and now the flight is way lighter. And I might need to go in and reset their zero fuel weight so they can get their takeoff numbers, or the other way around. I may have planned it. I mean, kind of light. Like we'll obviously plan the flight based off of booked passengers, but maybe another flight canceled. They moved all those passengers over, took up all the seats, and now it's way heavier than planned. Now I got to go in and reset, and that's also going to affect his burns. And so we need to talk like, hey, and now we're way heavier. We had all this extra fuel we were planning for whatever these constraints were, but now like that extra weight is eating into that burn. Do we need to get more gas? Are you comfortable going with this? A lot of talking. So Phoenix did a really good job on that side of things, of kind of replicating that realism of you might be heavier, might be lighter, might be what it was. So that's really cool. And one other thing that I really applaud Phoenix with, as dispatchers, we sometimes we get like questions that you'd almost think we wouldn't know the answer to because we're not pilots and we don't sit in the cockpit. We don't know the airplane in depth. Like we get trained on systems to an extent, but not to what the pilots know. And every now and then, like we have different criteria that's set as like a safety net for like takeoff performance, weight and balance, center of gravity and stuff. So whenever something is out of whack, we have to do a reset. And sometimes the pilot might only change the numbers that we change for them in one spot of the McDo, but not the other spot of the McDo.
Oh, geez.
Therefore, it's still messed up. So they call us and they're like, "Hey, we put in the new numbers and we're still not getting numbers. What's going on?" Well, being a simmer and being very familiar with the McDo, thanks to Phoenix and other previous Airbus developers, I can tell them like, okay, well, you need to go. Are your engines running? No. Okay. Go to the init B page and make sure that you change your zero fuel weight in the init B page. And if you haven't, that's what's throwing off your numbers.
Wow.
Like,
Get out of here. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Dude,
Oh, yeah.
I got a million questions for you. But so basically you're saying having a heads up in flight simming and with some of these high fidelity airplanes helps your job more than the other guy who's never done it.
Absolutely.
Oh my word.
Oh yeah. And then they'll turn around and be like, oh well, the engines are running, so we can't do that because now that page moved. Like, no, you can just go to the fuel prediction page now and change it there. Oh, that worked. All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. We're out of here. Like, it's in fact one of my coworkers one day, because I had this situation. I mean, this kind of stuff happens somewhat often, and the dispatcher asked me for help because do the whole flight sim stuff. I'm just a big old nerd like everybody else. And so he asked me for help, and I was like, yeah, just tell him to change the zero fuel weight in the fuel prediction page. He's going to tell you that he can't. He can. And so he tells him. He hangs up the phone. And he's like, dude, that's got to be kind of crazy to them that the dispatcher knows their airplane that well. It's almost as if like they try to tell me how my flight planning software works. Like there's no way that they should know that. It's kind of the other way around. So I don't know, it's kind of a cool moment. I was like, yeah, flight sim.
Oh my god.
Man,
Yes.
man. All right. Do me this favor before we even get into more nitty-gritty. What does a typical person like yourself, dispatcher, what's your day like? What is your day? What's your starting from planning? What is your day like? Like, tell me about it, man.
It varies by shift. It depends on kind of what shift you're on determines your workload to an extent. Like the morning guys, they're pumping out a lot more flight plans. But they won't do what they won't do what we call a turnover. So like a dispatcher's leaving, whatever flights they have airborne or planned, they'll turn them over to the relieving dispatcher. So those guys come in, and by the time they sit down, they're pumping out paperwork left and right. 'Cause it's morning time. We got the launch flights, and that's like one of the most critical times of the day. If you have a launch flight that's delayed, that's going to delay that airplane's whole line of flying for the day. So those guys really try to focus on getting the paperwork out on time, getting the day rolling. Also too, the time of year. So like the midday guys who come in middle part of the day, they're going to take over the flights from the morning guys. So when they sit down, they've got already a desk full of airplanes that are already flying. And in the mid part of the day, this time of year, got lots of thunderstorms, lots of stuff going on, lots of ATC constraints. So they're going to have to they're gonna have to pay even more attention, I guess, to what the weather's doing and where the planes are at right now, and like they're just getting thrown into the nitty gritty right away. And then on my shift, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit slower in a way, but it's also not in another way. When I come in, I may or may not take a desk of flights. I think right now we've got 2 people that leave and 3 of us come in. So one of us won't take a turnover immediately. So if that case, you may not have any flights in the air for the first hour and a half. The front end of our shift is a little bit light on building flight plans. But that's by design so that when all of the midday people, which I think is 10 of them, when those 10 guys turn over to the 3 of us overnights, 'cause I'm an overnight guy, I'm very nocturnal. Now we're taking 4 turnovers each, and we're going to have quite a good number of flights airborne once they do that. So we're a little bit light on the building so that we can focus on the en route flights. And then by the time those are landing, we're assisting with that morning push. We start pumping out the back end of our desk, which will probably have like 15 to 20 flights. And that should help the morning guys to get out some of those morning flights.
I don't mean to cut you here, but you said en route flights. So basically, flights are en route. What do you do in the background for those flights, if anything at all? Like, what is that like? I mean, what do you do for those guys? Is it diversions? Is it what are you handling?
Well, hopefully not diversions. And it happens. Like you sit down, and you might sit down and take a turnover, and the dispatcher's like, "Hey, by the way, Fort Lauderdale's holding for thunderstorms. I got one holding. He's got this much fuel he can hold for this long, and if he can't make it, then he's going here." And like as soon as you sit down, you're already in that situation, and those are not fun to kick your day off with. But no, we're just we're watching. We're kind of like, again, the eye in the sky. So we're watching for any thunderstorms, whether it's en route thunderstorms that we need to work them around, let them know ahead of time before they get to it, let them know where it's at in relation to their route and how to get around it, what the tops on the weather is. So if they can get over it, cool. If they can't, then you got to go around it. We're trying to keep them out of turbulence, and then obviously if you got thunderstorms at the destination, we're letting them know ahead of time, like, hey, thunderstorms in Fort Lauderdale, aircraft are holding, slow down. Let's try to give this more time to be taken care of before you get there. So yeah, we're just always talking to them and trying to keep them out of
So you're monitoring these guys. I'm here thinking a pilot alone is doing all the job of monitoring what's going on. You're like, no. You're like the eye in the sky, like looking at all these planes going over.
Yeah, they can see, a couple hundred miles out ahead of them as far as where the radar goes.
Right.
But we can see the big picture, and like very often it's super irritating, but I understand why it happens. On the overnight shift, we get a lot of transcon flights, and I might tactically route an aircraft. Say if we're doing like LA to Philly, I might put them on a particular routing to avoid a large weather system, and they can take off, and then LA Center is like, "Hey, want to go direct Philly?" And pilots are like, "Let's go, shortcut. We like shortcuts." And then they take the shortcut. Well, now that shortcut is putting them right through the line of weather I was trying to keep them out of. So it's up to us to see that and reach out to them like, yo, probably don't do that. Let's go back to the filed route so that you're not going towards like 50,000, 60,000 foot tall thunderstorms of death. So, yeah, so we're just kind of there as the eye in the sky because they can't see that far out.
Right.
And LA Center, like they don't know what weather's going on in Kansas City Center or whatever. So those guys usually, I have a few friends who are controllers, and for the most part, they just want aircraft out of their sector as fast as possible. They can just kick back and chill. So they're like, hey, shortcut, get out of my sector. I'm like, cool, we'll take the shortcut. But little do they know, 500 miles down the road is a squall line, and that's no good. So we'll keep them out of that.
I have a question. So how often do flight dispatchers and pilots actually bump heads?
Often. Pretty often. And a lot of it too depends on like just the personality of either the dispatcher or the pilot. I mean, we're all human, and humans have different personalities. So for the most part, our pilot group in my company are amazing. Love our pilot group. Very, very cool set of pilots. Very easy to work with for the most part. Every now and then you get this one, and plus, you got life stuff going on. For all we know, like captain just had a fight with husband or wife, and now they're just in a bad mood, and then they were coming to work, and you get a little bit of that. But there can be some disputes over. Usually it's fuel. In fact, I was jump seating on one of our flights one day, and I introduced myself. Said, hey, I'm Blake, I'm dispatcher, and the captain goes, "Oh, what's the difference between a burrito and a flight dispatcher?"
Oh,
Like,
no.
what? He's like, a burrito will give you gas and a dispatcher won't. So yeah, like that's the tough part with our job is where obviously like fuel is the biggest expenditure for an airline.
Right.
So we don't want to just go throwing on a ton of extra gas if it's not going to be burned for some sort of constraint. So we're kind of in the middle of like what the company wants and what the pilot wants, and we're trying to ride that line where we please both. I mean, for the most part, as a dispatcher, as long as you have a good reason for what you do, and it's not just feel good fuel, then everybody's going to be fine with it. But every now and then, a captain will call and be like, "Hey, I see that you got me planned with this much gas. How about let's add a little bit more?" And then, as a dispatcher, you just kind of have the conversation like, all right, well, why do you want the gas? And they'll give you their pitch, and they're like, all right, well, here's what I see, blah, 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 blah. And after that, maybe they're like, okay, cool. Like you accounted for what I was worried about. Sweet. Let's take the fuel that you planned. Or they'll be like, nope, let's tack on a little bit more, and they'll throw it at you like, when you're the one up there, like, and you're seeing this stuff, blah, blah, blah. So, and I usually, once you have that conversation, like I don't want to, it's a teamwork type scenario, right? Or environment. So I don't want to degrade that by like going head to head and arguing like, wow, like taking it personally, like my fuel load, whatever. If he's got a good reason for it, and I explain what I see and why I did what I did, and he still wants the gas, take it.
Did you just say feel good fuel?
Yes, that is very much a thing.
I am going to start using that when I'm loaded up to Phoenix. But like, let's put an extra $1,000 on for feel good fuel, just because the conga line is going to be long and taxi is going to be long. Wow.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Make
but
a
see, that's the
T-shirt,
thing.
feel good fuel.
As a dispatcher, that's the type of stuff we're taking into account. If there's going to be taxi delays or departure delays of some sort, we need to account for that. So we're going to put that in the
Wow.
taxi fuel.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's kind of the big part for us as far as fuel planning is. You hope that you can see every constraint that you anticipate and fuel accordingly for it, but there will be times that it doesn't happen. And I'll give you a little scenario it was kind of an eye opener for me when I first started at my current company. It was my first year, and it was really embarrassing, but it was a good. In fact, I was training somebody the other day, and I used this scenario for them. But I had a flight. I think it was Lauderdale to Dallas, and weather in Dallas was forecasted to be beautiful. There was nothing to make me think that there was going to be anything other than beautiful. And so I planned the flight. I think I gave them like 20 minutes of extra gas on top of what our fuel policy fuel is. There's a little bit more. And so they take off. They're en route. and some weather kind of built up in central Louisiana where the route goes. So ATC started publishing reroutes. And the reroute, instead of going from basically New Orleans through central Louisiana straight to Dallas, now it's going New Orleans all the way over to Houston and then up.
Wow.
And so I got the reroute, plugged it in, ran the numbers with their fuel on board while they were flying across the Gulf, and that reroute ate up a lot of their extra gas. I think they had maybe like 3 minutes of extra fuel now.
Ooh.
Oh, jeez.
But Captain was still cool with it. Like everything's going fine out in Dallas. Well, then typical Texas weather, thunderstorms blew up all around the airport. Airplanes started holding. We weren't even to New Orleans yet.
Oh my God.
And so I'm looking, and I'm like, well, we got 3 minutes of gas, no alternate, and planes are holding. Probably not going to get in. And now at this point, it's kind of, you make that call like, is it safe to continue? No. And it kind of sucks because it's purely just based off, we're having to divert now because of my fueling. And so I sent the captain a message, told him what was going on. And it's like, hey, you want to stop in New Orleans or you want to go to Houston? But like, we definitely can't keep going. There's no, if you had to hold, we're burned, and there's nowhere to go from there. So he's like, oh, no problem. Let's go to New Orleans. We'll do a gas and go. So they landed there, got their gas, and he called me on the ground. I apologize. Like, hey man, like none of this was forecasted. Didn't see it coming. Sorry, I just didn't give you enough gas. And he's like, hey man, it happens. I would rather be sitting here on the ground in New Orleans, get more gas than up there spinning circles with no gas. So that's kind of that teamwork environment. We're all looking out for each other, and sometimes we mess up, but you do what's safe. So that's what we did. And they took off, and then ended up going straight on in. The weather moved off. It was the right call. It was just kind of embarrassing.
I'm loving this. I hope V1 Simmons was watching and listening to the ops section of the story over here.
Seriously.
Let me ask something specific. I remember when I used to work for the charter company, we would get on with ops on a specific frequency.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you guys communicate these days? Is it still radio or is it CPDLC? What kind of communications do you guys do now with the airplanes that you fly, or that you service?
We got a couple different ways. For us on our side, the way we see it, it's like almost like an instant messenger. It's just you open up a little window called ACARS, and type in your message, hit send, goes to the airplane, and the Airbus will pop up company message, and they go to the ATSU AOC menu and receive messages, as you know now, thanks to the Phoenix. And
that's amazing. The fact that you said that, and I pictured exactly where to go.
Hey, hold on. Let me give Fly-By-Wire some credit because they're the first ones I see with it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I do wish that Phoenix would implement that free text that Fly-By-Wire has. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so we just we can message them with ACARS, and we also have the ability. We'll contact this company called Airink, and we'll let them know what airplane we're needing to talk to. We'll give them the cell call. So like when you're looking inside the airplane and say the Phoenix, you got the little cell call on the dash. Well, every airplane has their own cell call, and so we give that code to this company. They're like, all right, we'll call you back. We'll get them patched into you. A few minutes later, hey, this is New York Airink. We've got whatever airplane on the line for you. All right, patch them through. And put them on, and now we're sitting in our office talking to an aircraft cruising wherever. I mean, they can be like, I don't know, over Panama, Central America, and we can be chatting with them. So those are our two primary ways. If they're on the ground, if they're at a station that we have, like we have some stations we can listen to ops frequency, so we can chat with them on there. But for the most part, it's going to be ACARS, and when if ACARS isn't working, we can hit them up on the ops center radio.
What about ATC? Do you guys communicate at all with ATC?
A little bit. If usually it's going to be like, I don't know, if I had a flight and then they had a maintenance issue and they swapped the aircraft onto another airplane that works. If it's within a certain time frame of departure time, I'll have to call tower. I'm like, hey, this is Blake at dispatch. Can you pull the strip for da-da-da? And they'll pull the strip for me. Sometimes we'll chat with them a little bit more intricately depending on what the scenario is, but we don't talk to them a whole lot. It's mainly just going to be like pulling flight strips or if I don't know, they have the airport configured whatever direction, and for us, it's killing us on the takeoff performance. So we might need a specific runway so we can get off the ground and not have to kick passengers off. We can call tower and be like, hey, here's the situation we're looking at. Is it possible for us to take off of this runway? And usually they're like, yeah, man, it's not a problem. You might have to wait 15 minutes, blah, 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 but we can get y'all out of there. So we kind of, we do chat with them a little bit here and there, and we can coordinate with them when we need to. But for the most part, everything is so electronic these days. Our flight plans are filed electronically. We can even cancel the flight plan electronically if it's not within a certain amount of time from departure time, which I prefer because it just saves me a phone call. But other than that, we don't really have to chat with them too much. I will say this. This was kind of eye-opening for me. And it goes on to show like the experience that we have in our office within our dispatch group. But I've got a good buddy of mine who he used to be Memphis Tower controller, and now he's a dispatcher with us. I had an issue with a particular tower. I guess I won't call the tower out, but it was like fog had set in, and they swapped the airport around, landing where there's higher minimums. Plus, there were NOTAMs for cranes that were up, which increased the minimums even worse. And so they're trying to land airplanes on this side of the airport and already knew like they're going to go around. And sure enough, they start going around. I was like, why are they doing this? Like, you got a standard Cat 1 ILS on the other side. It'd be a slight tailwind, but we can do it. If they would swap it back around, we'll land. So I called Tower, and I was like, yo, getting pretty busy, huh? And they were like, yeah, what do you need? Because, tower controllers are always like, meh. I told them, I was like, hey, like the minimums landing to the west are far higher than if we go back to the east. If y'all swap the airport back around, then we can start getting planes in again. They're like, oh yeah, we're working on it. Like, yeah, you're not working on it. Hopefully they are now. So sure enough, they swapped the airport around and all the airplanes started getting in. So I talked to my buddy and I was like, why would they swap the airport? And he's like, dude, tower controllers, like they don't know the minimums. They don't know the plates. They don't look at the plates. All they know is turn the airport into the wind. Oh, very good to know. So,
Wow.
yeah, I always figured, they knew the minimums just as much as the pilots would. But that's why you'll hear tower controllers ask the pilots, like, hey, what do you need to land? They don't really know. Plus, every airline is different, and they have, like, some airlines are approved for certain approaches and others aren't. Stuff like that. So it's probably a little bit useless for them to know to some extent.
We need to get these controllers into flight simming, man. Give them some IFR flights and fly. Right? Oh, wow. This is good. How dare you tell the people how to do their job, man? What's wrong with you?
Well, I tell you what, I think the week before that, the exact same scenario and the exact same airport happened, except it happened right after I got off work. And I don't know, they never swapped the airport back around. So I checked flight radar, and there's a Congo line of diversions to Orlando. It was coming from South Florida. I think Miami was diverting, Lauderdale was diverting for fog. So it was just a Congo line of American Airline, like 777s and 78s and everything in between on their way to Orlando. So whenever I saw this happening again, I was on shift this time. I was like, you know what? I don't want diversions, and I want to go home on time. So nice. I called Tower. I'm sure they didn't appreciate it, but I don't care. It's about getting airplanes on the ground and getting people where they need to go safely and legally, and we made it happen that night.
So basically, you're up there batting for the guys who are flying. You're like going to bat for them before you even get.
Right. Man. And it's kind of funny because I did pull up liveatc.net and started listening to them talk after I talked to Tower, and they were doing the same thing. Like, well, if you turn the airport back around, we could get in. So, especially when you got the pilots start saying it, the controllers start to listen. They're not going to listen to us. We're peasants. They'll listen to pilots.
Wow. This is good stuff, Blue.
It is.
I got plenty of questions from chat. One real quick one. Somebody was saying, are you guys in charge of handing out the zero fuel weight, or is it all rounded up from the fuel and passengers and cargo, etc.? How does that work?
It's the latter. So it's all based off of, and I'm sure every airline kind of does things differently. We have like our SOPs, kind of like how all pilots from different airlines have their own SOPs. But for us, it's so we'll take the book number of passengers, which is already in there. And then I think they plan for one bag per passenger, and the bag weights and the passenger weights change whether it's wintertime or summertime. But it's all pretty automated. The system knows how many passengers are booked. It'll calculate what the estimated zero fuel weight is based off of how many passengers with a bag each. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just fed into the system. We can see how many passengers are booked. We can see what the estimated zero fuel weight is. But other than that, I mean, it's in there, and we just calculate with it.
Jeez.
There will be times that when the zero fuel weight is heavier or lighter, we'll have to go manually put in the zero fuel weight, the actual zero fuel weight that they have on board, along with their fuel on board, and we can run some calculations or reset whatever they need done. But for the most part, the zero fuel weight stuff is just automated. It's thrown in there. The way I like to think about it, I've recently started flying for a virtual airline, and in theirs they tell you what the planned passenger load is. So in a way, it's kind of like the same thing. It's booked passengers. So then whenever I'm in SimBrief, I'll go throw in that passenger count and then maybe a little bit of cargo too to kind of like play off the bags. But yeah, it's essentially the same thing.
I have so many questions.
Oh yeah. One real quick. How accurate is SimBrief?
I was going to ask that. That's what it was.
Compared to the real world stuff.
I've actually sat at work and taken a real live flight plan and then pull up SimBrief and run it side by side. And there's always gonna be little differences because there's like every aircraft is different, and like we have a whole engineering department that inputs like the perf factor and a bunch of different stuff for the airplane. So there's always gonna be those little bit of differences. But SimBrief is surprisingly good. It's pretty daggum close. I was very pleased with what I saw. I've gone as far as to take like one of our live airplanes and take all of the weights that we have and make a profile in SimBrief and run it with the same numbers side by side with a live airplane and a virtual airplane, and it's like within 300 to 500 pounds on the burns and stuff. It's pretty good. I was very impressed. The only thing like I wish they could implement with SimBrief is like being able to tell it how much fuel you want to land with, because that's a big thing that we do. We have like a minimum amount of planned fuel per aircraft type that have to have a minimum of this quantity. And sometimes if I don't really have a reason for gas in my virtual world, I want to land with 5,500 pounds of gas. But then with SimBrief, they don't have that functionality, so I'm having to go just constantly change my contingency fuel or my extra fuel to make it land with what I want. So I wish there was like a little bit more functionality, just only because I'm a dispatcher and I know this stuff exists. Mm-hmm. But like as dispatchers, there's a lot more that we can do software wise than like SimBrief. But I understand where SimBrief has to be. It's got to be simple for just the average user. But in real life dispatch, we can plan the land with a certain amount of gas. We can tell it like extra fuel in time, extra fuel in pounds, tanker. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. We can speed up, slow down the CEI, which you can do in SimBrief. I mean, there's just a lot more control that we can do. And we can do like en route airborne calculations, whereas you can't really do that with SimBrief. Holds, diversions. If I want to run a calculation from like a waypoint, let's say we're flying on VATSIM and for whatever reason we're having to hold at whatever fix. I want to run what my fuel is from that fix to maybe the airport I'm about to divert to. Can't do that on SimBrief. I think some of that you can do on PFPX. PFPX is quite a bit more in depth, but a lot clunkier to play with too versus SimBrief. SimBrief is just so like quick and easy, And plus, every airplane for the most part, you can just bring your flight plan into it, which makes life a lot easier.
Good.
So,
real quick, guys, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Ron Sag Simulation here, real life dispatcher, and he's just giving it some insight that got my mouth wide open, like, yo. So, in the description of the video of the live right now, either Blues or Mines, there's a website. There's a YouTube channel for Wrong Side Simulation. Go ahead and go subscribe to his channel right now. Just take a second, go hit it, hit the sub button. He deserves every single member he can get on that channel. And then while you're at it, in Mine and Blue's channel, there's also the link to the new home of the Blu-XPerience podcast. It's called the Blu-XPerience Media. It's another YouTube channel. We're going to be coming on there live next week with lots of giveaways and stuff. We'll talk about that later. So go join Blake's channel. the wrong side simulation and go join the Blu-XPerience. I want to see all you guys in chat. We're watching right now. I'm watching the numbers on the new channel for Blu-XPerience. It needs to go up a little bit. Blake's also. You need to, man. Blake, you're a wealth of information, man. You absolutely are. Blue, I know you got
appreciate
tons
it.
of questions. I'll shut up now.
I have questions, but before I get to my questions, I feel like every time we bring in another content creator or streamer, I always have an idea. I feel like this should be a tradition from now on. I need to give a new idea to people when they come in if they have channels. I have a video idea for you, wrong side. You should make.
Okay.
If you have time, I'm not sure how you feel about making videos, but I think you should make a video about it. This is the title: Real World Airline Flight Dispatcher Flight Planning Tutorial.
Okay. I could do that. In fact, I've had that idea before and was going to actually I
Yep.
started a video,
Thumbs up.
and it's so easy to go off the deep end 'cause there's so many intricacies to dispatching and so many different little things. A lot of it's regulatory, like when is an alternate required? We use what's called the 1-2-3 rule: hour before, hour after time of arrival, less than 2,000 foot ceilings, and less than 3 miles visibility. You require an alternate. There's also exemptions to that are like airlines are approved for, but that is like the reg in the FAA is like. In fact, I think it even says that you are required to have an alternate no matter what. Well, not no matter what, but you're always required to have an alternate unless it is above those conditions. It's kind of weird verbiage, but that's the weird thing with dispatch too. Is a lot of what we do is like verbiage and interpretation of FARs and like, and there's a million different ways. Like in the dispatch room, we all do the same thing very differently. It's wicked. But yeah, I've actually thought about doing one of those, and then, like I said, I started doing it, and I just got so much down the deep end. I was like, yeah, this is like very advanced. Like nobody's gonna understand what I'm talking about.
No, but listen, like I got
make it
somebody in the
simple.
chat saying right now, like, please go off the deep end. Like, there's a lot of people out there, and here's the thing: is there's already tutorials out there that exist on flight planning. That's for people who don't go off the deep end mostly. But what I think me and I think a lot of the community would love to hear and understand, because right now we just use SimBrief. We drop in this, start, stop, and boom, we got numbers. But we don't really understand what's happening in between there and why it's happening. As you just mentioned, SimBrief is pretty close to accurate. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good for a simulation. But if you could like break down, like, hey, listen, I'm gonna make a flight plan. I'm not using SimBrief, but I can show you why you're getting these numbers and blah blah blah. So I think it'd be dope. But I'm gonna go on to my question. So how much? Because you mentioned software earlier for flight dispatcher. How much of flight dispatching is actually automated?
Well, that depends on the airline and what software they use. The one that we use is pretty automated. It's good and it's bad at the same time. It can make the software a little clunky. You want to tell it to do something specific, but it won't do it. It's really irritating. Then you have to like go start all the way over from the beginning, kind of preset your flight how you want it to do it, and then go to, like, if it's an en route calculation, go to what's called flight follow and make your en route calculation. But if you don't go back to the beginning, it's not going to work. But for the most part, what our software does, 3 hours prior to departure, it'll make a run through, and it will, on a basic way, kind of determine what it thinks it should plan. So if an alternate's required, it can tell, it'll plan an alternate. It'll choose the best runway with winds, and also read the NOTAMs and know if runways are open or closed. So should plan a open runway, hopefully. And it'll also, depending on where it's at, like what the city pair is. Like if you're doing Florida to the northeast, like there's not going to be many routes. ATC is very strict on routing because it's such dense airspace. But if you're going out west or coming from out west, you pretty much have the freedom to route however you like, because it's not nearly as dense airspace. So the software will choose what it thinks is the best optimized route with the best winds. But I will say, a lot of times I can look at the little route map and it'll have the winds aloft, like the little wind barbs going across. And I can look at it like, no, like I can eyeball it and tell I can make this a faster flight by just cutting out one or two fixes, catch a little bit better of a tailwind and shorten the distance a little bit, and we're saving some block time.
Mm.
But for the most part, it's pretty automated. It'll go through and it'll do what it thinks needs to be done. And I kind of look at that as like a general outline. I'll take in consideration what it did. But at the same time, you're talking about intricacies with dispatch. Airports themselves have their own little quirks. Like for example, LA does after midnight local, they do this noise abatement procedure where they land to the east but depart to the west. And they also have this one very particular arrival called the Midnight 2 because it starts around midnight that you have to put them on for noise abatement. Problem is, like a lot of the afternoon guys who aren't there late enough to see this don't know about it. So then they don't plan it. They give me the flight, and the captain, who's flown into LA a gajillion times, is like, hey, they're going to put us on the Midnight 2, and we're going to be landing to the east. We're going to have to go all the way out over the water and come back. It's going to eat like 1,000, 1,200 pounds of extra gas. So you didn't give me enough gas, kind of thing. So it's like learning those intricacies and what each airport, what its quirks are and that kind of stuff. And it all just comes with experience and repetitions of planning flights and making mistakes, getting your teeth kicked in by ATC reroutes whenever you didn't plan the right route or something, and you'll learn, and then you'll know how to correct it. So I kind of look at it as an outline. I'll take in consideration what it did, but through my experience and knowing like this is definitely, we're not going to do this because ATC is not going to like it. We're going to do this instead. So
a member in the chat called V1 Simulation says, I still don't know what exemption 3585 is. I just trust the dispatcher.
3585.
What is that? What is he talking about?
So if oh gosh, now I'm in an oral with the FAA.
Here we go. Let's go.
Sorry, man.
No, it's so 3585 is an exemption.
You got coworkers watching.
Yeah, exactly, right.
I should let them answer in the chat.
True.
I'll keep my license. But no, it's so in the event that you have we're dispatching a flight to an airport that has visibility that's forecasted lower than published minimums, but it's in a tempo or like a Prop 30, we can send it. There are criteria. We have to plan 2 alternates, stuff like that, but we can send the flight. Now, let's say that it's not a Prop 30 or a tempo. It's in the main body of the TAF. Then we can't send it if it's below minimums. So then you're going to have just delay the flight. Usually it's a tempo for the most part, depending on where you're going. If you're going to Atlantic City, that stuff will sit there forever.
Yeah,
but
like a temporary, right?
Yeah, like you see if you're looking at TAF, you see a tempo. It'll give you like a time frame. So if it's a tempo, if it's in tempo, then you can send the flight. Just got to have 2 alternates and stuff like that. And if you don't know as a dispatcher, we got lots of manuals that you get to search through until you can find the answer to what it is.
Wow.
So that's kind of the other. That's probably one of, and I should tread lightly saying this, but my next role I'm going into. But I've always been good with like the airplane stuff and general dispatching. But whenever I struggled to like, okay, what is 3585? Let me go look that up to make sure I don't mess this flight plan up. I've gotten a lot better at it over the past like 2 years or so. But like digging into the manuals and finding what that is so I can do this right used to take me a while, and I wasn't the best at it. Getting better. But yeah, we got manuals upon manuals, and if you need to know the answer to something, you can find it. It might take you a hot minute, but hopefully you'll know like kind of what manual to go into.
So basically, you're all just learning on the job nonstop, all the different things.
Oh yeah, wow! And like you learn something new just about every day. You see something new every day. But it's a really fun job. We see a lot of interesting stuff, especially when it comes to like passenger behavior.
Is that what a UAP is, or is that something different? Somebody says, have you had experience with handling UAPs interfering in flights? I don't know what that is, but
yeah, I'm not sure either.
Okay, go ahead. But yeah,
if they can say what the abbreviation means, I might know.
I got you. But let's talk about the passenger stuff because that's a big deal. And you know.
We see some crazy stuff. We'll pretty often, especially on the night shift, and especially flights going out of Vegas, where everybody's been partying. We'll get a lot of law enforcement requests. So we'll, if captain says, "Hey, we're having issues with this this passenger. He's intoxicated and he's doing XYZ. We need law enforcement upon arrival." Cool. So we'll call up ops and say, "Hey, this flight, they got this passenger in this seat. They're doing this. We need to get the cops involved." We'll do that. Yeah. So we see some passengers doing some pretty wild things, stuff that may not be internet approved to even talk about,
Oh my word.
especially coming out of Vegas or New Orleans.
Okay, you have to, before you leave, at least share us with one story that you can say, something crazy or unbelievable that you've. I mean, obviously you didn't witness it because you're not on the aircraft, but like something that has gone through the process with you.
Not too long ago, I had I sat down. I took a diversion, or not a diversion. I took a flight from a coworker. As soon as he walks out the door, message pops up and says, I think they were leaving LA. They were like diverting to Phoenix. Suspicious or possible BOMB. I don't want to say the B word. But moved it to the least risk bomb location. Every aircraft has a least risk bomb location.
For that. Yeah, it was
And,
L5 on the 7.4. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they put it there. They stacked all the bags on top of it, and we're diverting to Phoenix. I'm like, oh, this is a great day, or a great way to start the day.
Wow.
Yeah, so they had to land the airplane. I called Tower and was like, yo, where do y'all want to put these guys so I can let them know before they land where y'all want them. But yeah, they put them in a specific spot. Had the passengers bring all the shades down so they wouldn't see law enforcement and K9s and all this stuff getting ready to board the airplane.
Wow.
Yeah, and it turned out to be kind of nothing. It was a guy who was bipolar and was just having an episode, and he was asking questions he shouldn't ask in
Oh,
flight
geez.
attendants, and
Wow.
he was kind of acting suspiciously with a particular bag, so they went the safe route and like, hey, we're going to declare emergency and divert and get this sorted out. So I've had that. In fact, my very first day ever soloing on the dispatch desk when I was at my last company at Trans States, had a bomb threat. And so I get the ACARs and the captain was like, "Oh, we're diverting, we got bomb threat, blah blah blah." I was like, "This is day one. I don't know what to do. Supervisors, y'all,
Bring somebody else in.
y'all, yeah." But yeah, I mean, it's just usually it's the typical stuff. People trying to vape in the lab, and then like they want to be combative after that, or people are just drunk or kind of coked up or something like that. We see a lot of different medical situations. Most of them not a big deal. Sometimes they sound really bad, and then the medical doctor on the phone is like, "Yeah, not a big deal. Just give them a sugary beverage and whatever. Continue, no big deal." So we see a lot of that. Every now and then we'll get some some pretty bad medical stuff. We have to divert, whatnot. But
Wow.
that's just kind of the. I mean, you never know what you're going to get when you dispatch. I guess life's like a box of chocolates.
Here's a question.
Dispatches.
Here's a question from Tyler. He was like,
Yeah.
why are there so many last minute cancellations lately in the industry, and how have those affected you as a dispatcher? How
Great
does it come
question.
about? How does those come about, or what the
On the
hell's going on?
dispatch side,
Mhm.
makes our life easy. Those flights just go away, and we don't have to work them. But that's the kind of the crappy thing, because we're literally the only person that benefits from cancellations, because
Mhm.
everybody else, it screws them over. Between the crew, the shift coordinators, who are responsible for the logistics of the airline. So they have to keep the airline moving, and when you start getting cancellations and you get crews timing out because whatever, their life sucks. Obviously, passengers' lives suck. For us on dispatch, it's like, well, it's canceled, so I got nothing to do right now. As
I was
far
gonna
as
say it's similar for ramp if you're on the cancel side. Like if the plane is not there with you, then you ain't gotta do nothing.
yeah, it was there with you, and like cancels, now you gotta go pull all the bags out of the cargo bin, and yeah, it's
Gotta
it's
tow it
terrible.
somewhere. It's bad if you're on on that side.
Yeah,
Go
Wow.
but
continue.
it's I don't. We were talking about it at work the other day. I can't remember why they were saying everybody was canceling. My airline hasn't really been canceling at all. And I think one was like a pretty big computer glitch. I won't name the airline, But there's a pretty big computer glitch that affected like True Network. It was like a True Network type IT issue. I think the other one was kind of the same, and the issue allowed pilots to basically drop trips, and then like ended up having nobody to fly
Oh,
because of
geez.
the issue.
Wow.
And the pilots didn't know that this was happening. They were just like, oh, I can drop this, and they were dropping it. But yeah, other than that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of short staffing issues going on, and that's like anywhere from ramp to dispatch to pilots, flight attendants, controllers. I think just about every day we're having issues with Jack Center. They're having some short staffing stuff, so they're having to put out some airspace flow programs that cause some pretty big delays for that, which big delays will turn into cancellations because crew's timeout, not legal to fly. We don't have crew replacements, whatever. It's all the logistical stuff. There's so many moving parts. Like the office that I sit in, you got dispatch, you've got shift coordinators that they are handling the logistics of the airline. You got crew schedulers, you got maintenance control, you got guest solutions. God, what else? I mean, there's just like so many moving parts going on. I literally sit in the beating heart of the airline. And all it takes is one little thing to happen, and all those moving parts quit moving in that synchronized way, and then things can fall apart. But
which leads me to my question, because we're talking about, when we just started the chat, we're talking about this as a alternate airline career that a lot of people don't even think about or hear about or know how to access it, and you explained that to us. But would you say this is a stressful job, not stressful, moments of sheer terror or moments of boredom? What was the job itself like? Would you recommend it?
It's so funny you asked that. It's it can have its periods of stress, especially like when weather gets really bad and you have like 4-6 airplanes holding, and you're having to do the burn calculations for all of those, and the software is like not the best. I mean, it's not that it's not good. It's just not as like fast and as intuitive as I would like it to be. So then like, yeah, it's getting pretty stressful because you about to start having flights divert all over the place. I can be getting my teeth kicked in with all sorts of, in fact, it's happening to me last night. I had 2 flights coming into San Juan, isolated cell, sat on the field and on the approach. And so I'm trying to work that out, and we're kind of limited on alternates down in that part of the Caribbean. Most of the alternates can be kind of far. So I'm trying to deal with that, and I had some other stuff going on, like some other logistical stuff going on, which just causing a pain in the butt. Dude sitting next to me's got his feet kicked up. It's like, come on, man. I want to kick my feet up too. But but I was training, so it was actually pretty good that all that stuff happened, so that my trainee could see live all these things unfold. So yeah, it can be stressful. It can be brain-numbingly boring at times, depending, like especially like in the spring and in the fall when weather's good, turbulence is like not a factor. It's pretty much just send the flight plans and just kick back and watch them. And you don't really have to talk to the crews very much and warn them about weather and all. It's just like you're just kind of there. So it can be pretty boring. It can be very stressful. It just depends on the day and the weather and what's going on. In fact, you can have a beautiful day weather-wise, and then just logistical things start happening. Things start falling apart, and now your whole desk is just messed up because of whatever logistical stuff's happening in the airline.
Gotcha. And any difference between passengers versus cargo on this?
Oh yeah.
Major.
I mean, passengers get drunk, act fool, cause air return sometimes. Boxes don't. It's just it's a big difference between like a passenger airline and a cargo airline. It's just the fact that like sometimes we might have to hold a flight if we have like a lot of passengers that might misconnect. Sometimes if I don't know, we got a big group of folks, we'll hold the flight. You don't have to do that for boxes. I wouldn't think. Man, and boxes don't complain about landings. Although I will say this, and I hope V1's still listening. At my time with where I'm at my company, we have a really good reputation for really smooth landings. Really
nice.
Smooth. So that's
nice.
Cool. We don't have to listen. If we have good pilots that are really good at landing, then you don't have passengers that are whining and complaining about the landing too much.
Really? Passengers actually do that?
Oh yeah. I mean,
really?
mean, I've heard stories. I haven't really seen it for myself because every time I'm in the jump seat, it's a ultra smooth landing, and usually it's a passenger walking by and they're telling the flight attendant out loud, like, "Oh, tell the pilot it was such a great landing," but like, they're kind of saying it loud so the captain or FO, whoever was flying,
Nice.
can hear.
Nice.
But yeah, I've never really jumped on my company. I haven't really had any even like remotely rough landings. Other
Nice.
airlines that I've jump seated on, but
Nice. So
yeah.
just let's get it out straight. So as a dispatcher, you get to jump seat on basically all the U.S. major carriers.
Correct.
That's
and for
amazing.
you guys that don't know, for you guys that know what jump seating is like, not ID 90, not discounted, but free as long as it's available.
Yes.
Seniority and all that stuff. Yeah, I need
Right.
to be a dispatcher right now. I'm done.
Every airline has different different procedures as far as jump seating goes.
Mhm.
But yeah, if it's full in the back, 'cause sometimes, especially like on other airlines, if it's my company, I prefer to ride up front because I like to meet the pilots and get to know them and ask questions, and then also kind of get their feedback, like what is it you don't like that we do and what can we do better as dispatchers. But on other companies where it's not my metal, if it's full in the back, I can ride up front. If there's an open seat in the back, usually I just go right up there or go right in the back. I've had times where pilots were like, "Hey, you just want to come right up front?" Yes.
Nice.
Especially if it's a 757.
Nice.
While those are still around anyways. But
Yeah.
but yeah, any domestic US carrier, and that's any passenger as well as cargo. I can go jump seat on FedEx or UPS. There's a few different stipulations, but I can definitely do it. And we can also list for the jump seat on an international flight.
Mm.
We'll just ride in the back, but I think leaving the States it's free. When we come back, we just pay the taxes. I've recently went down to Punta Cana, rode in the cockpit going down, coming back up. I was in the back, free. Although it was my company, but I didn't have to pay anything.
Nice.
So yeah, airplanes for us are just, I mean, they're cheaper than Uber because it's free. And they go a lot further.
Oh yeah.
And there's some
Oh,
really
yeah.
good views up front too. Really good views, a lot of cool stuff to see, and it's so neat to like fly a plane like Phoenix and then turn around and go sit in the real thing
Mm.
and see how the real thing is done and see the similarities between the two. It's just, man, it's so much fun.
I have
Flight
another-
sim, and
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if it wasn't for the flight sim, in my opinion, I wouldn't be sitting where I'm at right now,
Wow.
hands down.
Days. Wow.
That's
Flight
amazing.
sim has been,
That's
which
dope.
I'm kind of addicted to it, like a crack addict. Like I get off a 10-hour shift and I come home and then I go fly a flight that I dispatch.
That's cool.
Oh, nice.
It's what's really cool too is like some airports do weird things. For example, Orlando, I'm sure V1 can attest to this. Orlando on ILS runway 18 right, they will hold you at 3,000 feet until you pass over Orlando Executive. Problem is, that's like 7 miles from. It's probably actually close to like 6 miles from the threshold, but it's not very far, and the glide slope gets way below you. So now you have to plan accordingly as far as your speeds and stuff.
I don't cut you. I just saw him do that approach and explain the exact same thing.
Oh yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, he was like, "Yeah, you got to hold it there, and then you got to like." I guess he was saying put everything out so you
Yeah,
could
you gotta
go
get
down.
dirty.
You gotta get dirty quick. Yeah. See,
Mhm.
telling you,
And
love the flight sim world. It's good
It's
stuff.
tough. I did it on my channel, I think a video or two ago, and it was the first. I mean, I've tried it multiple times, and I've just never could get stable, because that's the other thing is you have to meet stable criteria. I think for Orlando is 1,100 feet. You can't exceed 1,000 feet per minute below 1,100 feet. If you do, you go around, which I actually did today going into Denver. But yeah, it's very tight. By the time that you get to 1,100 feet, like you're just getting stable, at least with my pilot skill.
Here's a question for you, and two people asked this question. Shadow asked, and also Phoenix J asked. It says, "What's basically the starting salary, kind of roughly, for a dispatcher? I guess it maybe varies by airline, and also is it enough to help pay for flight school to go back and fly?"
Oh yeah. Yeah. So on average, if you go to like a 135, which is going to be your charter type operations, they usually don't pay as much as the airlines. It's gonna be a lot smaller operation, and they do a lot more than just dispatch. They're like crew scheduling. They do everything. Those guys, if I had to guess, probably starting at like 40, 50. I mean, times have changed with inflation and stuff, so I think places are paying a little bit more. In the airlines, at the regional level, like I know my buddy that's about to start at his company. I think they're starting at 20 an hour. But you can, especially like as you climb the pay scale and depending on the airline, you can make a lot of money. You can make quite a lot of money. And I think there's guys at like the big four, especially like really senior dudes, they could probably be pushing 400,000 or 500,000 a year with overtime. And
So
overtime is usually pretty abundant. So to the second part of your question, you can absolutely pay for flight school, and I get asked that all the time by the pilots. So I'm kind of settled in where I'm at. To me, flight dispatch is the happy medium between flying and not flying. My head is the same pillow every night, but I get to go ride in the cockpit when I want, etc. So I'm okay with it. But we do have another one of my guys. He is currently paying for all of his flight stuff with his salary. He just works a lot of overtime and then goes and flies. And in fact, I think he's about to somehow, I don't know how, but buy his own airplane.
wow.
So that way he's not having to pay, for the flight school stuff himself. So yeah, you absolutely can. It might take you a little while and some experience to get to that point financially, but yeah, you can absolutely do that. You can make a nice little chunk of change.
So is it similar to like I know on the ramp and other airport jobs, depending on the airline, you start at a certain amount, and like yearly or bi-yearly, you'll kind of they add on and add on. Is it kind of like that? The same with flight dispatching.
Yeah, we most places just have a pay scale, and so like year one is this, year two is this. Usually like you'll have bigger jumps further into the pay scale. For us, I think year three is one of our biggest, and a little bit further down the road. But yeah, it's usually just a pay scale. Most airlines are unionized, so you also have a union to go to bat for you if you need to, and that kind of thing. But
so the dispatcher job is a union job?
yeah, some airlines are.
Okay, cool. Didn't know
Yeah,
that.
not all of them, but some. I think most.
And do you
Nice.
have to start like on the regional level? Like when you become a dispatcher, similar to like pilots, a lot of times they start at the lower levels to get hours and whatnot. Is flight dispatching the same way, or can you go straight into a major airline?
For us, we have some folks who were internal that came over with no experience. It seems like that's usually the trend if they don't have any experience. Otherwise, you do need to have some experience from somewhere. So for me, it was the regional level. I was training a guy today who I think he spent a couple years in operations. Then he went to a regional for about 6 months as a coordinator, which is it's a whole different job from dispatch. So essentially, no dispatch experience. And he's sitting next to me getting trained. So yeah, you can for the most part. I think most airlines these days, I think you can probably get into a major with maybe a year of experience. And we're talking like big four too.
So is that experience like I mean years, or are that calculated in hours? Like how is that calculated?
Just years.
Okay.
Yeah. And typically they prefer Part 121, which is scheduled air carrier operations, so airline. But like Part 135 or whatever kind of experience you have, it's always going to be taken into consideration. But they prefer 121 because there's just a lot more moving parts to a 121 operation than there is like a 135. It's got like 121 has its own it's its own environment, its own world. And so it's a little bit better if you've spent time in that world before coming to this one, you already kind of know what to expect and how things are structured.
Nice.
So.
Nice. Absolutely. If you guys are just joining us, we got Blake on from Wrong Side Simulation, just giving us a wealth of information that we really never hear about. And we're loving it. So do me a favor again. Go into the description of the show here today, either Blues or Mines, and give Blake a subscribe. Go sub to his channel. He deserves it. He deserves it. End of story. Also, in both mine and Blues, I have mine pinned in my channel. Join the Blu-XPerience Media channel. It's a new YouTube channel that's going to be hosting this show going forward. We're going to have all our back episodes on that, plus the future ones coming up, and also next week we're gonna have Orbix with a massive giveaway. We're giving away 10 products on that new channel. So go ahead and hit the sub button. So definitely join Wrong Side Simulations channel. The link is in the description, and also the Blu-XPerience system. We got what between both of us, we have at least almost 200 people watching right now. So we need to get at least 200 subs over there on the Blu-XPerience channel. Let's do it. You guys can do it.
That's the total amount of my subs. I think I got
There you go.
213.
Don't worry, yours is gonna go up too when you wake up.
Matter of fact, let's double Wrong Sides. Let's get him to 400.
Let's double Wrong Side subscriber base here, because now I'm gonna go watch him fly when he's live, because I want to see how he plans the next year's flights. You know what I mean? I want to see that, And what Blue was saying earlier, Wrong Side, about you making a video, you can also do that on a live stream. It's always recorded. It's always there for posterity. Just know that that specific live stream is about the planning aspect of it, and then of course the execution. So
I still think it should be a video. I mean, I'm a video watcher.
I will make it a video. Don't you worry. Absolutely. I'll do both. And I've considered doing the. In fact, I think I've done it a little bit. But doing like the pre-flight planning before jumping into the actual cockpit and that kind of stuff. But also too, like, there's every now and then, especially if I start getting questions. So if anybody who subscribes, you want to know more about dispatch, feel free to subscribe. And when you see me live streaming, throw the questions at me. I'll answer them. If I don't know the answer to them, I know a lot of people who will. But there'll be like, I'll kind of deep dive like the OFP and like what's the difference between dispatch add fuel and extra fuel. What is min required takeoff fuel? What does that encompass? And so there's a lot that I think I can teach on that side of things. And that's one reason too. I've always understood like why captains.
No. I'm like, hold on. Repeat that.
Got a glitch in the Matrix. He says you want to know why captains.
Oh, I know why captains make. Oh, just pilots in general, as far as like compared to dispatch. Because I've heard the argument. It's like, well, we're 50% responsible for the flight, so like, shouldn't we make more than the first officer? I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, have you ever like watched them run through their memory items? Like, there's so much more that, just say the first officer, so much stuff that they have to know. Then you go to the captain. Not only does he have to know all the airplane stuff, from like the limitations and the memory items and the flows and checklists and all that stuff, but he also has to know the company policy side. Like, okay, so this ATC reroute was over 100 nautical miles, so now we need an amendment for that. Or we climbed 4,000 feet or descended 4,000 feet. We need an amendment for that. So every time when something changes en route or on the ground, we might have to amend or like change the operational flight plan to reflect that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different criteria for that. So you're throwing all that company stuff on top of all the pilot stuff. There's a lot. And if you ever get the chance to go sit in a training sim and watch them do stuff that you hope you never see in real life, you'll be blown away and be incredibly impressed with the skills and the abilities that these guys have. I think during COVID we had to go sit in the sim instead of doing our yearly cockpit fam ride. We had to do it in the sim. Man, we went to, it was a loft flight. Once we got into, I think we were doing most of our stuff in Burbank, and they were doing like V1 cuts coming out of Burbank. Like, kind of wild. I don't know if y'all know what a V1 cut is, but at V1 you lose an engine. And Burbank, super short runway, mountainous terrain. There's a lot going on. They're doing wind shear. I mean, just all sorts of stuff. Lots of stuff that you pray to God you never see when you're sitting in the cockpit or sitting in the back. And just the way that these guys like just roll through things. I mean, y'all see V1 and the way that he runs the lower ECM. I did a V1 cut on my channel a couple episodes ago. I couldn't even get to the point to even read the ECM actions. I was just trying to fly and without like stalling a wing. So I mean, those guys, like, it's unbelievable the stuff that they can do.
Well, hold on. As a dispatcher, you get to sit on a familiarization flight in the cockpit.
Right. Yeah,
how
so we are.
You're required to do that
once a year, and that's the whole reason why we're able to jump seat in general. Because we're required to do 5 hours in the cockpit of each aircraft type that we dispatch. For cockpit familiarization and just to be familiar with the cockpit environment and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we do that once a year. 5 hours is what the FAA requires.
That sounds like fun to me.
I already see. I
Can
already
be.
see 3 people in chat changing their careers right now.
It's
Definitely.
it's fun. A couple years ago, I did. I think I was the last minute because if you don't get your fan ride done within a certain amount of time from like your hire date, you're not able to dispatch. You're dequalified until you get it done. And so it's kind of last minute for me, and the only thing I could find that was a round trip was Orlando to Las Vegas and back. Long day of flying, sitting in the cockpit for one. On top of that, I think from roughly Louisiana all the way to Vegas was like continuous moderate turbulence, all altitudes. There was no getting out of it, and it beat us up the entire way. Really exhausting. Got to Vegas, sat there for 2 hours, got back on the airplane to go back to Orlando. It was supposed to be 30 minutes shorter since we were going with a tailwind. But then, of course, we had a maintenance issue on taxi out, so we had to like go park somewhere, call maintenance control, work that out, defer the item to avoid a gate return, and then take off. And it's still like from Vegas all the way to Louisiana, continuous moderate turbulence, all altitudes, just getting kicked around. It's not fun,
Wow.
but still fun to be in the cockpit no matter what. And that's the cool thing too, is like when in those scenarios, because as dispatchers, and that's one reason why I tell pilots I like being a dispatcher, because they'll complain. Like I used to be in a crash pad for quite a while, and they would always like tell me these kind of things, and like, yeah, man, that's why I like dispatch, because my chair don't move unless I tell it to. Y'all, but but nonetheless, like that's one of those kind of operational things where they send us a message and they're like, hey, the rides suck. Do you have any info you can give us on where better rides are at, and we'll do what we can to help. So we try to be that eye in the sky to help them when they can, because it sucks when you're up there and just constantly getting kicked around. But you used to be a flight attendant.
Yo,
So
yeah, walking around and trying to hold on and look good at the same time and don't look freaked out. Yep, it's true. But now, man, this is so interesting. Like, career-wise, I'm telling you, you just unloaded a whole bunch of information on a lot of us that are rethinking it. Blue is on the ground. You're in ops. A lot of us want to be pilots, but can't do it. But there's options to get you in and around airport environment and doing the stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I
And,
mean,
I don't get to touch the controls, but I get to speak the lingo. I get to be in the cockpit. I get to be part of the operation, and every now and then I get to go sit in the sim and fly the study level sim. So,
nice.
or I guess the level D sim would be the correct terminology. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a great happy medium between the quality of life. Like at my company, not all. In fact, I think we probably have the best schedule of all airlines in the U.S. But I can make my schedule essentially whatever I want. I work 7 on, 7 off. We got people who do 4 on, 4 off, 5 on, 5 off, whatever you want. They just go to your opposite, and if they're willing to swap, then we'll do swaps, and you can basically have off every other week and have a vacation every other week, and then because we fly for free, when you're off, go jump on an airplane and go somewhere, and go do something, and actually have enough money that you can actually go have a good time whenever you get there. That's one thing I had to remind a lot of people, like, oh man, you get to fly for free. I'd be going all over the place. Yeah, but costs money once you get there. You got to get to the wherever you're going and pay for where you're staying. And
Car.
so,
Yeah, it's true.
yeah,
I
it
do.
is such a fun, but sometimes not fun, depending on what's going on. But it's a very rewarding, fun job. I mean, I in my opinion, the aviation industry as a whole is the best place to work. But I'm kind of biased, obviously, and I got lucky. I discovered the flight sim, and that kicked off my passion, and I get to go to work for fun, essentially.
Nice. What kind of prerequisite or what kind of aptitude should somebody have if they want to become a dispatcher for the training that you did, through the schooling? What are they looking for? What kind of people are they looking for? What would benefit somebody to have going into it? I mean,
It's a good question. I mean, a lot of it too would probably be defined by the airline themselves, because there's other majors that I know of that like they look for a type A personality or
yeah,
something like that. I mean, obviously you want to be pretty analytical, and it's kind of funny because I hate thinking. But this entire job is all thinking and strategy and planning ahead. So I don't know how I ended up becoming a dispatcher, but you want to be somewhat analytical. But I mean, you don't have to be the smartest person in the world. I definitely am not, and that's when like one of the things that keeps me super humble is I can just talk out loud while I'm training, and there's like another guy sitting next to me who's like, "Oh no, actually that's wrong. It's blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh yeah." Like there's such a wealth of knowledge all around us, and so many different experience types of folks, whatnot. We've got controllers, we've got pilots, we got all kinds of stuff sitting in our room. Um, for us, we focus a lot, not only just obviously having a dispatch license and having some experience, but also personality. Because when we're all sitting in the same room for 10 hours a day, we work 10-hour shifts. And a lot of dispatching is what we call DRM, dispatch resource management. So you kind of want everybody to click and mesh because I don't know everything. And I want to be able to turn around to the people around me like, hey, I don't know about this. What do you think? And because of that, we're a very tight knit group. We all get along very, very well. We all really like each other, and we have fun when we work together. Every now and then, like we'll bump heads or we'll have disagreements because there's so many different things, I guess you could say, in dispatch that you can look at this and interpret it this way, and then this person interprets it this way, and then so on. So and you just kind of start bumping heads a little bit, but nonetheless, man, we're all like super close and really good friends, and I think that's because of how the company kind of prioritizes personality. Um, and man, and the other really cool thing with our group is we got we got people from all over the place. Like you want to talk about a melting pot?
Mhm.
Our dispatch department is a hell of a melting pot. We got 2 folks from Africa, we got 1 from Egypt, Jamaica, Bahamas, Peru, Colombia, Nicaragua. Where else? I mean, man, all over the place. Like it's so cool. Like my buddy Rio. If you go back far enough into my channel, you'll see a shared pilot video or a shared cockpit video. It's my buddy Rio. It's one of our fellow. Now he's an ATC coordinator, but was a dispatcher, and from Malawi. Got a very very thick accent. And it's just like
Talking
I've
about
never
accents in that room.
right.
Oh my word.
So it's
That's
just
good.
it's so cool to like meet all these people from all over the place and become really good friends and just the wealth of knowledge that everybody's got. I mean, we got like I think 2 or 3 controllers and we got guys that have like fixed wing licenses and rotary licenses and I mean, just all sorts of stuff. It's if you try to get a big head in there, you'll get grounded pretty quick.
Quickly. Right.
So there's
Right.
always somebody that knows more than you
Oh
in
yeah,
some
oh yeah.
shape or fashion.
Do you have to be good at numbers to be a
No,
dispatcher?
otherwise I would not be a dispatcher.
I'm
At all.
asking for myself because I'm not great with numbers. I'm like, this is one of those things that might kind of be a deal breaker for me, and I feel like someone out there definitely, can relate. So you're saying no?
Yeah. In dispatch school, that's where you're going to be challenged the most with numbers. When I was in dispatch school, we used this thing called a whiz wheel. And if you don't know what it is, you should look it up. It's some like little paper thing and it helps you do some calculations. My buddy that's in dispatch school now has an aeronautical calculator. Didn't know they existed.
What?
Yeah, it's called an aeronautical calculator. I have
Googling
no
it
idea
now.
how you'd use it.
And you had to use a whiz wheel.
But yeah,
Jesus.
ugh,
Wow.
never again would I ever want to go to whiz wheel.
Nice.
But yeah, so like in dispatch school, it'll take you roughly 2 hours to plan a flight. From doing your like aircraft performance and weight and balance, center of gravity, all those calculations, which are pretty big formulas, to the flight planning stage. It'll take you about 2 hours to plan a flight. In real life, on a very easy flight where there's not really anything to take consideration, like 3 minutes.
Wow.
What? Okay.
Little thing we like to call computers. And if it wasn't for those, I would not be a dispatcher because I am terrible at math and I'm terrible with numbers. I can handle zero fuel weight is 115.5 compared to 117.6. I can handle those numbers a little bit. Other than that, when it comes to like math, I'd be out the game.
Good to know.
So no,
Good to know.
I don't.
And what's the difference between flight dispatch and load planning?
So that's a good question because I don't think we really have much of load planners, and if we do, we
I don't know
have
if your
much
airline
interaction with
does
them.
that. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I think for the most part, because obviously, like I know Delta has load planners, ALAs, back whenever I worked with them. But for the most part, like we're planning the flight in general. So we're planning cruise altitude, the route, fuel. Um, we're taking into account like MELs and CDLs that may degrade the performance of the aircraft. Taking all that into account, whereas I think just the cargo loading agent he's going to be the one responsible for making sure that the cargo is loaded in the appropriate cargo bins and aircraft is within CG and stuff like that.
Gotcha. And then he gives you the numbers and you plug that into your computer and stuff.
Right. So they'll bring up the sheet of paper to the crew, which I think we actually just went to like an automated ACARS version to make things a little bit better. But yeah, so they kind of they'll put in like this many bags in this compartment. Like you got standard, you got heavy, freight if you got any freight, that kind of stuff. And then also the gate agent brings up another similar form that tells you got this many passengers, you got adults and children in this zone, adults, children, this zone, da da da. They plug that into their AOC performance, and they get their zero fuel weight CG. I mean everything. Their flaps, flex, packs on, accelerated stop distance remaining, all that stuff. Engine fail procedure. Well, I guess that's a little bit different, but they get all their information from that, and that is started by the cargo load agent or just whatever ramper brings it up to them.
So, what did you think of that feature in the Phoenix where it shows the landing distance?
I I like it. I think it could be a little better, but I don't know if maybe they wanted to make it simple just for like the average user. I honestly don't ever really use it. I just plug in, the weather and all that kind of stuff. And plus I'm doing, if you ever watch my channel, I try my best to do the same like flows, checklists, and briefings that our guys do in the cockpit. And with that has me looking at the airport diagram, looking at how much actual usable runway I'm going to have and that kind of stuff. So every now and then I'll go use it. If it's a really short runway, like the other day I flew into Orange County, I used it then to see what my landing distance available was going to be and that kind of stuff. But if for the most part, if it's a longer runway, I don't really use it. That's just me.
Nice. Somebody in the chat says the real question is does the extra 1 or 2 pounds over 50 in my check bag makes much of a difference?
To the airline, yeah.
It's cumulative and gas burn, I think, no?
Exactly. And also, the airline's in the business of making money, so they make those lines in the sand so they can, make more money where they can. But yeah, it's all comes down to the weight and increase in fuel burn.
Gotcha.
For sure.
Gotcha. Wow.
So
Man, look, you sure do have a very interesting job that I've been in and around ops agents, but I never took the time to find out what these guys do and how they do it. And
yeah, and you'll likely never see us. And that's the thing is, if you're getting on a flight, the whole process for that flight started hours ago. Like we usually plan flights on average 2 hours before departure time. So you've already got somebody that's deep diving the weather and the rides and NOTAMs and all of it way before you're probably even checked in. Well, maybe before you're at the airport.
Gotcha.
So yeah, nobody knows about us, and that's kind of why I wanted to take this opportunity to try to share what we do. And again, if somebody can't fly, take a look at this. It's I'd say it's equally as fun. And if you make enough money that if you want to go get your privates or your private instrument, whatever you want to get, you'd have the money to go do it on that level if you don't want to go the full, commercial aviation route. So anybody out there listening, take a look at Flight Dispatch. There should be some sort of flight dispatch school around you. If there's not, they do offer, like I know my school, IFOD, they offer online classes. I have another friend of mine here in Orlando. He's taking online classes, which I can't really imagine doing that because a lot of things you kind of just need an instructor there to show you and explain why. But more power to him. He's got a business and stuff he has to run, so he's kind of tight on like being able to travel somewhere for school. But they got online classes. They have night classes. That's what you need. Then they have like full-time classes where you're in class from 8 to 4 or 5, something like that. And it's only 5 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks. Bury your nose and knock it out and be set for life.
Wow.
Blue,
So,
Yes.
I think we have one of them classic episodes right here, man.
Yeah, I agree.
I gotta go back and listen to this too. Absolutely.
I have one more question. I think this is the most important question that we're gonna ask the entire stream, and that is, what is your preferred sim?
Oh God. Boom. Microsoft Flight Sim.
Oh boy.
I'm a little different from y'all. I came from FSX and then prepared.
Oh.
And because I had invested so much money into add-ons, I never made the jump to X-Plane until I started streaming. And the fly-by-wire just kind of got old, and it was like every episode was fly-by-wire. It's like, you know what? Let me go jump on that Tolus and the flight factors and Zebo and level up. And so I did go that way. And I know, Blue, I've told you this before, that like because of you, I met Captain Shaquille O'Neal. My boys, like thanks to him, he taught me all X-Plane stuff because I had no idea. And now it's kind of cool because now somehow managed to get him into Microsoft Flight Sim, and now I can repay the.
So is that
favor
why
of
he's in
TPM.
Microsoft Flight Sim lately? You're the
I think
reason.
I had a little bit part of it.
Nice.
But yeah, for me, it's Microsoft Flight Sim, and I knew at some point once the more study level in depth airliners came along, like, we're going to see the full potential of the sim. Although I will admit too, I don't know if y'all have noticed this or not, but it seems like there's like what happened to thunderstorms? There's no lightning, not hearing any thunder.
Turned it down. They turned it down a bit. It was when it just came out. It was just lightning everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they turned it off.
Like, I think so. At the tops, man. Like I put a thing on the Microsoft forums. I'm cruising over cells that are at like 45 to 55,000 feet tall, and there's like it's just a beautiful day of scattered clouds. It kind of breaks the immersion a little bit, but other than that, like I think we're really starting to see the full potential of Microsoft Flight Sim finally. And now I'm so excited. Give me those IAE engines and sharklets for the Phoenix. Oh man,
yeah.
It's gonna be on. It's gonna be on.
I did get a nice thunderstorm takeoff out of DC in X-Plane 11. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you didn't get any wind. You didn't get any windshield effects. So I mean, you didn't really.
I did. No, I did. I was flying the IXCG 73 Classic. I got thunderstorms. The weather radar was working. I had to divert around some storms and turbulence, but
that's so fun. Like that's one of like it makes me kind of start like hanging on to my jump seat a little bit because I'm not used to turbulence the way that our pilots are. But like it's such a different sensation when you're in the cockpit of an Airbus and you're like bobbing and weaving around build-ups or cells or whatever. It is like a completely different sensation. It is so much fun. And so now, like, put me in the Phoenix, and now I want to bob and weave around thunderstorms. And like at lower altitudes, yeah, and then like above 15, 20,000 feet, like they just all went away. And I was like, all right, well, I guess we're just gonna cruise now. Kind of boring. But I do want to say this real quick because I get this question a lot. I get this question and reaction a lot on my channel when somebody new comes in. So the reason why my channel is called Wrong Side Simulations, because I sit on the wrong side of the airplane. I sit in the right seat. And I've had people jump into the chat and like they see it and they're like, ew, first officer, right seat. But like from what I've seen in the flight sim community, and nothing against it, everybody wants to be captain. Captain this, captain that. I got to do something different. And at the time I had a left-handed throttle. It was like a little fighter throttle. And I was like, I can't sit in the left seat with my left hand on the throttle. That's not realistic. For simmers, we got to be as realistic as we can be. So finally, I moved my view over to the right seat and kind of got that down. And then when it came time to stream, I was like, I'm not gonna leave the right seat. I'm just gonna be that senior first officer that's like, hey, I like the responsibility I got. I can get whatever schedule I want. I'm chilling. I'll just stay in the right seat.
I am not mad at that, my friend.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. That's actually, you know what? Because 99% of us fly from the left seat. So you flying from the right seat will make a nice little different visual. You know what I mean?
I remember the first time I ever saw somebody fly at the right side on a stream, and I was like, "This is interesting." Wow. So yeah, salute to you, man, for doing that for sure. It's like exotic. It feels exotic when you do it on the right side.
It's uncharted territory almost.
Yeah.
But now if we can just get shared cockpit with Phoenix, my dream would be do a shared cockpit flight with V1 because I think, I'm just spitballing, but I think I could hang with him as far as doing the flows and checklists, like doing the right seat responsibilities and he do his left seat responsibilities. I think I could hang. Not
Better
sure.
you than me, man, because I would screw that crap up within 5 minutes. He'll be yelling at me. By the way, in the comments, V1 says, "Man, you could be his dispatcher any day, man." He appreciates it, brother. He does.
I will definitely make sure to take care of him on the field.
There you go. What's the name of the fuel again? That was Feel Good Fuel?
Feel Good Fuel.
Feel Good Fuel.
That needs to be a drink, man, like an energy drink or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Feel Good Fuel. I like that.
Yeah. To V1, I will try my best not to plan you EFOB 4.6. He'll know what that means.
Right. Nice.
I mean, I don't know who the hell he flies for, but if he somehow is at mine,
right.
no 4.6 for him.
There you go.
Yeah, he's excited.
The V1 fuel.
Oh my word, guys. This is lovely. This is absolutely the kind of episodes that we love to bring you guys on the Blu-XPerience. And again, I'll say it again. Go join the channel, the Blu-XPerience channel right now. If you haven't done so, go sub to it because come next week, that's where we're going to be broadcasting from with all our episodes going forward. Also, Right Side Simulation, go to his channel, hit him with the subs. I want to.
I was going to say anything.
Did I say right side? Exactly. Wrong side simulation. Go hit him up, man, and give him a sub as well because I'll be there watching him to just do his thing. And your wealth of knowledge shows, man. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but it shows that you're either a quick learner or you're just good at what you do, and we appreciate you bringing this perspective, something that I've never had before. I don't know about you, Blue, but first time I'm hearing this special perspective, and it's good and it's valuable, man.
And we can absolutely see your passion. Like, it's so bright, and I love it, man. I love it.
I am a big airplane nerd. That's really what it all just comes down to. Big old airplane nerd.
It's contagious, man. I've already seen multiple people in the chat say, "Hey, I'm gonna look into being a flight dispatcher," and personally, I'm one of those people. I'm gonna look into seeing if it's realistic for me to become a flight dispatcher because I'm really interested. I really am.
Do it and subscribe to my channel, or if you go to my channel, go to one of the videos. I have a Discord link in there, so if you want to hit me up directly, if you just need some guidance on anything dispatch, any way that I can help, I'm here.
Amen.
Good to go. Wow.
Anything else like you want to say, that we didn't ask you, or any other social medias want to promote anything? This is your time right now, man.
No, only social media I've got is YouTube. I got off that. That's the other thing that's kind of nice at this point, since I only have 200 subs, is I don't have to do Instagram and all that.
Just wait. You just wait. Same thing. Oh boy.
But no, I mean, I think I pretty much got everything out. It's just I don't know if you can't fly, come be a flight dispatcher. It's a hell of a lot of fun, and keep it on the wrong side.
That's the billboard right there. 995 exactly. You can't fly, be a dispatcher. Put your face on it. It's good to go. Wow, great, man. Blue, what you got coming up rest of the week?
Hey, man, I'll be live again tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern. We'll be back on Microsoft Flight Sim. Got some more giveaways coming. Flight Control Replay has been sponsoring us and got us a bunch of copies to give away. I know big complaint about Microsoft Flight Sim is not having a replay system, and Flight Control Replay so far has been working pretty good for me, and I'll be giving away a few copies of that. So definitely excited about that. And again, I can't say it enough, the Blu-XPerience is finally running to its own channel, and that's going to be starting off next week on our next episode with Orbix, giving away 10 products. 10 of y'all are going to have free scenery or free something. I think we're also talking about Volanta subscriptions as well. So it's going to be good, man. I'm excited about the future of the Blu-XPerience podcast. It's been growing. We've had amazing guests just like our friend here, Wrong Side Simulations, and I've learned so much, and I'm just so I love this episode. It's just, man, it's so cool.
I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. we're gonna keep bringing it. We're definitely gonna keep bringing it to you guys. For me, tomorrow is what, Friday, not the FNO, is the XPO tomorrow. I don't know where we're going yet. We'll see what happens. And then the next week we're gonna be doing some good stuff as well. So stick around, stay tuned for that. I can't believe it's the end of the week already. We just had, like,
I got one more thing I forgot to say. There's
go
so
ahead.
much going on. Pilot Edge is having the virtual Oshkosh event next week. I do have my own virtual Blue Games booth in the scenery pack, which is freaking crazy. So definitely come by. If you don't actually end up flying into the event, you can still download the scenery, I believe, free if you have an account. And you can still fly in Oshkosh yourself. I'm planning on actually dispatching my own flights or planning my own flight from my home airport down here in Houston up to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and most likely the Kit Fox, the Trent Palmer Kit Fox, is gonna be like a 2-day, 9-hour trip for me to fly that thing. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be fun. So looking forward to it.
Blue, that's it. Thank you so much. Wrong Side Simulation, appreciate it. Blue, take us out, man. We are out.
Well, guys, that's episode
Bye, guys, later.
31. Thank you again, Wrong Side Simulations, XP72. Remember, you guys, you have 3 choices: give up, give in, and give it all you got. Peace, love, and God bless you. We will see you guys on the next episode, next time, next video. I and XP and Wrong Side. All right. What do you say, Wrong Side? Keep the what up?
Keep it on the wrong side.
I like it. I like it. All right. We out, guys. See ya.
See ya.